My name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network. Please understand and wake up, America. Wake up. I mean, for the love of all that is holy, for the love of all that is important to you, wake up. We are at the precipice. We're at the verge. And there's going to be people that listen to this and say, well, we've been at this verge for a long time. We've been towards this, on this edge of this cliff for a long time. Believe me, I know, because I've been doing this earnestly since 2008, and the last 2 years on a radio 2 nights, or on the Rinse Network 2 nights, 2 hours a night, Monday through Friday. Trust me, I understand. But things are far, far worse than they were in 2008. You see, I'm not waiting for a financial crisis to hit, because it already did. I'm just waiting for everybody else to realize, or what I should say is, when the powers that be allow everybody else to realize how much we've spent to paper over this economic collapse that has occurred. How much debt has been piled on us to give us this normalcy bias over the last 4 years. This is all going to be recognized. And when it hits home, it's going to be the people who are plugged in to the pop culture infotainment who are going to be absolutely devastated. They're going to be the people who freak out and lose it, because they wake up one day and we do have a credit freeze, or we wake up on one day and we do have shortages because trucks aren't rolling, because fuel's too expensive, because the dollar's collapsed, or the bond market's collapsed. These things are inevitable. There isn't a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when. And people, they want to just pretend, because since Bretton Woods and since World War II, we've been the big superpower on planet Earth, and our dollar is always going to be king because we have the 1971 orchestrated petrodollar deal when we closed the gold window, and Kissinger went around the world saying, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, this is the system we have right now. Barely 40 years old. Look at great fiat currencies throughout history. Look at empires who've expanded at a supernova rate, and then only to implode under their own hubris. This is where we're at. I don't like it any more than anybody else in this country, but I refuse to plug into the mainstream infotainment and pretend that that is my reality, because it isn't. And it isn't your reality. It isn't. You are not in control of your own future if you believe this reality. Then you have to sit back and let somebody like Barack Obama, Joe Biden, George W. Bush sit there and take control of your entire lives. This is where we're at, and we need to realize where we're at, because this collapse that's already occurred will manifest on this country and around this world sooner, probably, rather than later. But even if it takes 5 years or 10 years, this is the time now to bring people you care about into a state of enlightenment to reality. Biden, just the other day, in front of a bunch of bankers, Import-Export Bankers Conference in Washington, D.C., talked about the need, yet again we hear a politician talking about the need for a new world order. A leveling of the playing field. These aren't my words, these are the vice presidents of the United States. We need to have a level playing field on this planet. We need the new world order on this planet. He talked about him and Obama coming into office with the worst economic disaster since the Great Depression. And they had to unfreeze credit markets, and they had to reform the financial system, and they had to interject demand into this economy, and they had to create jobs because we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. The reality of it is, the facts that he is presenting as truth are not challenged by the establishment media. And the facts that he are giving to the people of this country are outright bogus lies. If you dare to stand up and look into these kind of statements and statistics for yourself. Any person that can fog up a mirror, any person that has a brain cell in their head, can rescue their own personal economy. If they are thousands or millions of dollars in debt, they can rescue themselves by printing. If they were allowed to print money with reckless abandon, knowing that their neighbors were going to have to pay for that failure, pay for that printing press, there isn't a human being on this planet that couldn't look like a wizard after 4 or 5 years. But the facts of the matter are, we're not doing wonderfully well in this country, even with cooked statistical information. These nearly 50 million people on food stamps. Sure, J.P. Morgan makes a ton of money on the food stamp programs. Sure that we have Washington, D.C. saying it's a benefit to our economy. But it's not, because we're tacking $1 trillion a year onto our sovereign debt that we can't afford in the first place. All of this is mounting pain that's coming down the road. Joe Biden talks about fixing the financial system. I don't see Glass-Steagall being reinstated. I see the bankers that are systemic being more systemic than they were before, being more powerful than they were before, and being more in control over the future of this nation and the planet than ever before in the history of this country and this planet. He talks about how he interjected demand. Well, you know what? Here's the deal. You give a bunch of bankers enough money that they can, invest it recklessly into their own stocks on Wall Street, and you can have a 16,000-point Dow Jones and claim to interject demand into this economy. But we know the truth, right? We know the truth of the number of people who are unemployed that are not accounted for anymore to give us bogus numbers. We know the millions of people who have lost their homes because we're here on Main Street, and we're here on Main Street demanding the truth rather than infotainment. When you go to a store, when you go to a grocery store, you go to one of the mart stores, and you see people walking around consuming, understand that the majority, and I mean the majority of the people that you see out consuming, are on one form of government assistance or another. I'm not belittling them or social safety nets. What I'm saying is this is the largest man trap that has ever been created on this planet. You have a population that is over 50% in one way indebted to the government or another, while the true people who should be indebted and should be serving the people of this country are these banking elite, but they're not. Their crimes are forgiven, their debt is forgiven, it's piled onto us, and we sit back and pretend this is recovery because we have an actor like Joe Biden stand up before a bunch of bankers and say so, but it isn't the truth. The truth is we are in desperate situation in this country. We are on the verge of a bond collapse. We are on the verge of a dollar collapse. We are on the verge of the rest of the planet turning their back on our empirical expansion ways. We are on the verge of losing everything that we've worked so hard for to hand to the next generation as the people before us worked to hand to us. It is time to wake up and realize where we're at. We will be lied to until the day of reckoning occurs. Stories are attached. That's all I got.